Today we're going to provide you with some information about electronic cigarettes. They were invented in the 1960s but haven't really gained popularity until the last decade or so. They come in two major forms. This is a disposable unit. It looks more like a traditional cigarette. And then there are reusable units that are electronic. This is a battery cartridge. This is the chamber that you would fill with e-juice. They come in 1-ounce bottles, cost between $10 to $20. This unit unscrews from the chamber and is charged on a USB cord. To activate it, the liquid is vaporized within this chamber. You just push the button, it lights up, and then you're able to inhale the vapor. The e-cigarettes are regulated by the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration. They were deemed not to be medication or medical devices, but a tobacco product because the e-juice is derived from traditional tobacco and contains the nicotine. With e-cigarettes, we see a new product within the same industry, tobacco using the same old tactics to glamorize their products. They use candy and fruit flavors to hook kids. They make implied health claims to encourage smokers to switch to the product instead of quitting altogether. And they sponsor research to use that is used as a front to their claims. So what are the health risks of vaping? Well, the jury is still out. The phenomenon of vaping is so new that science has barely had a chance to catch up on the question of safety, but some initial small studies have begun to highlight the pros and cons. The most widely publicized study into the safety of e-cigarettes was done when researchers analyzed two leading brands and concluded that the devices did contain trace elements of hazardous compounds, including a chemical which is the main ingredient found in antifreeze. The FDA report found 9 contaminants versus 11,000 contained in traditional tobacco cigarettes and noted that the level of toxicity was shown to be far lower than those of tobacco cigarettes. However, e-cigarettes remain unregulated. It's impossible to draw conclusions about all the brands based on the analyzation of only 2. So, do e-cigarettes help people quit tobacco smoking? Because they preserve the hand-to-mouth ritual of smoking, e-cigarettes might help transform a smoker's harmful tobacco habits to a potentially less harmful e-smoking habit. As of yet, though, little evidence exists to support this theory. In a first-of-its-kind study published in a medical journal, Lancet, researchers compared e-cigarettes to nicotine patches and other smoking cessation methods. They found them to be statistically comparable in helping smokers quit over a 6-month period. For this reason, they view the devices as a promising, though probably not a magic bullet. For now, the FDA regulations forbid e-cigarette marketers from touting their devices as a way to kick the habit. We're concerned about the potential for kids to start a lifetime nicotine use by using e-cigarettes. Our main concern with e-cigarettes is the potential for kids to start a lifetime habit of nicotine use. Do you guys have a typical customer? Do you see younger people or older people?
Whenever I opened doors, I thought our main customer base was going to be anywhere from 20 to 30 years old, and it's actually 40 to 70 is our main customers.
Okay. And are those customers mainly people that are trying to quit using traditional tobacco products?
Yes, I would say roughly 95% would be people trying to quit smoking.
Okay. And did you guys have any opposition to the new regulation with e-cigarettes not being allowed within public spaces?
Opposition from our side to
Yep, so did
Fight
you
against
go
it,
to like the city
We
council?
did, yes, and we did have a big group of people that went with us. Not actually with us, but for us. It was not in our favor whatsoever. But from my personal aspect of it, is that I do believe it should be up to the business to make their own decision on what is allowed inside of their doors as long as it is legal. I am not a smoker, but I do think that it should be up to the business owner to make their decision if they allow smoking in there or not. If the people do not want to go into that atmosphere, do not enter the doors. As long as it's clearly marked on the outside of the building. But for the business aspect of it, for us, they wanted to ban all of the sampling. And we were allowed to do zero nicotine sampling, which is good for us because if somebody can't taste what they're going to get, it's hard for somebody to quit smoking. I mean, if they're going to get a flavor that they're not going to like, they're never going to do it. So we have to be able to do that inside of our doors. So at least we're allowed to do that.
Okay. Could you show us the components of the e-cigarette?
Sure, a very basic one would be something like this right here. You have the battery, which is held inside of this with a button. Then you have the tank, which holds the liquid. Inside of the tank is a little, what they call an atomizer. There's a little coil of wire wrapped around a wick, soaks up the liquid. Whenever you push the button on the battery, it's going to heat up this little wire inside and vaporize the liquid. And then there is just a basic charger, which looks like this right here, that you just screw your battery into to charge it. And then the liquid comes in bottles similar to this.
And I noticed these are actually child-proof.
Yes, we run all child-proof caps.
Okay. Some are not. That's one of the big issues is the toxicity of the liquid for people, small people.
Which, if you actually look at the studies, there was a study put out by the CDC not too long ago that says this is how many instances we had with nicotine poisoning. We actually called the CDC and asked them how many issues there was, and they said out of those, I don't remember if it was 800, 700, 70 calls, whatever it was, only 3 of them were actually told to go to the hospital. None of them were a problem. And then they are also saying kids are drinking this. I find that to be crazy. Me being, I was a pack and a half to 2 pack a day smoker. If I take nicotine like this and put about 4 drops on my tongue, I'd almost vomit. So I find it almost impossible that somebody could drink a bottle of this.
Okay.
But anything is possible. I'm not saying it can't happen. There's crazy people in the world. And then all of our stuff is marked, nicotine levels, warning labels, like you said, the childproof caps.
Yep. So where do you get your supplies from? Are there...
They're all U.S. sourced. I won't touch anything from all over the country. Of course, the nicotine itself comes from India, is one of the biggest suppliers of nicotine, no matter where you get it, pharmaceutical or not. All the stuff we use is pharmaceutical grade ingredients, other than the food flavorings, which there is no pharmaceutical food flavorings. But the propylene glycol, the vegetable glycerin, the nicotine is all pharmaceutical grade.
I'm Marty Lundeen. I'm a program manager for the American Lung Association in Minnesota, and I cover pretty much the Northwest region, based in Bemidji.
Marty, what was your biggest obstacle in getting the e-cigarette ordinance approved in Bemidji area recently?
I think the biggest obstacle was the fact that we already had an e-cigarette store that had opened a few months before. And as my boss, Pat McCone, says, once a store opens, it's a little late because then you really have organized opposition. And really in Bemidji, we had more organized opposition than elsewhere in the state. From what I've heard from my colleagues around the state, it seemed like people came from as far away as Mankato to protest the e-cigarette ordinance that we were working on here.
So some people feel very passionately about it.
Both ways.
Yes. would you say is your biggest concern with e-cigarettes?
My biggest concern is that there are so many different kinds, they're unregulated, we don't know what's in them. And along with that is the fact that they could poison children. Some research just came out on that recently, so I'm really very concerned about that. I think if they were regulated by the FDA, and so, you know, we knew what was in them and there were some measures to keep them away from children, you know, then that would be a little better.
So our main focus is to educate the public about both sides of the spectrum. E-cigarettes are not as dangerous and toxic as a common cigarette. They do still contain nicotine, but are a great way to start the quitting process. One of the big arguments is the targeted children with the flavors of e-juices. Big Tobacco is up to its old tricks with marketing. It is not illegal to advertise e-cigarettes. Children are the future of our world. We want to lessen their risk of becoming addicted to something so toxic and unhealthy. Another big issue is, should e-cigarettes be allowed to be used indoors, unlike common cigarettes? The vapor still contains nicotine, and there are so many unknowns regarding long-term effects from e-cigarette use and secondhand effects. As with any other topic, there are supporters of each side.